Committee, thank you for coming back promptly. It is 10:50. We didn't actually come back promptly, I lied. And it.
Thanks for coming back.
Not as promptly. Thanks for coming back. We are looking at H-135. This is our miscellaneous tax bill. And Kirby is going to join us and talk us through it. I hope people can stay focused despite the thrilling ice removal happening outside the window. Kirby still deserves our attention. Thank you so much. And I think with that, Kirby, you want to do this?
I'm gonna try to be more riveting. I don't know.
And folks, this is very far from the last time we are going to look at this bill. It's usually one of the last bills that we pass out by crossover. It's sort of a catch-all for things that we find throughout the session. And so I'm going to ask Kirby to walk through the whole thing before we dive into any one piece.
Okay, good morning, Kirby Keaton, Head of Council. We have a miscellaneous tax bill that has, I believe, 11 sections, and then we have language for 3 other sections that the chair asked me to show you as well after that. And without further ado, we'll jump in. The first 2 sections of this bill are the annual link up. If you remember when we walked through income tax basics, we talked about the annual link up to the federal tax system. Vermont starts with federal AGI for a lot of what it does. And so we need that link up to start from the intended place. So that's sections 1 and 2.
Probably the first.
Yeah, just so we're doing the bill first and then we'll do the additional language after. That brings us to section 3, which, by the way, everything in the bill was a proposal from the administration. So a lot of these things for the policy background, I'm not gonna be able to help with a lot. So we have section 3, which amends.
I'm sorry, what I should add at the beginning is traditionally we separate out language that costs money from language that doesn't cost money. And so we might do that this year, but this is sort of the full text of the.
Okay. And I can try to remember that when I go through the sections about whether there's a cost. This next one would not have a cost to the state, section 3. It amends the section on personal income tax returns to require those who file jointly at the federal level to also file jointly at the Vermont level. My interpretation of this is that there's probably an administrative burden reason for this. There is the provision here that allows the Department of Taxes to make an exception, though. That's section 3.
Shall split of a matter.
Section 4 amends the section on the Vermont child tax credit by increasing the eligibility age for the child for which the credit's being claimed for from age 5 to age 6. And that's all it does. In section 5, we have a proposal for the Vermont Earned Income Tax Credit. There's a lot of what's going on here is just moving some language that exists in the law, allowing this credit to be claimed for people who don't have a tax identification number to claim the credit. So a lot of what's going on here is just moving that language down to the bottom. It's not a substantive change. The substantive change here is allowing a Vermont EITC credit of up to 100% for individuals who do not have children. For those who do have children, it would stay the same at 38%. Kind of interpreting this looks to be aimed at compensating for the fact that we have child tax credits for those other people, and individuals without children don't have as much support.
And with a former commissioner came in and talked to us about those proposals.
That's great. I meant to check on that. You've heard the run through from the department?
On the big stuff, I don't remember if they did the little stuff.
Okay, that's good for me to know. Thank you. Section 6 is part of exempting U.S. military retirement income and U.S. military survivor benefit income from personal income tax. And Section 7 includes part of that change and some other changes. For Social Security benefits and for civil service retirement, and then for other retirement systems, Vermont allows a partial exemption, as I believe you know. One thing that's being done here is increasing the thresholds for income for all of those things by $5,000. So if a person has Social Security benefits of 55,000 or less under this, then that would be all excluded from tax. And then there's a phase out between 55,000 and 65,000 worth of benefits.
And we ran through this with Pat 3 weeks ago.
Okay, great. Okay, so you're well acquainted with that. So
It's still helpful to see the language. I'm just trying to like refresh memories as we go. The weeks are a little wild.
So we have the changes for Social Security here. And then on page 7, same thing, actually. It's just for joint filers, which have higher thresholds. And then civil service retirement is addressed on page 8. And yeah, for all of these, it's an increase of 5,000. Page 9, also civil service. And then the other retirement income section is changed on, I think we're on page 10 here, line 8. You see U.S. military retirement is deleted there because of the other change that would make it fully exempt. And then the subsection dealing with U.S. military retirement income also deleted because there's no need for a partial exemption when it's completely exempt. And then these are just conforming changes on page 11, top of page 11. So that's it for the income tax. There's a change on page 11, starting section 8, to the tobacco products tax. The definition for other tobacco products is having added or nicotine, whether natural or synthetic. There's one change that I made to the language here so that you're aware. It originally said artificial. I spoke with Jen Carby, my colleague who works on tobacco regulation, and she suggested, although we're not sure exactly what products they were getting at, it seemed like synthetic is what they meant. Synthetic would mean human-made, but not fake. Artificial could mean fake. So we thought that synthetic was more of what they were after.
So my understanding is that they are getting at Zyn, which does not contain nicotine. What this language would do, and we will take more testimony on this at some point, we need to, but this testimony would be to tax that at the rate of other tobacco products, which is significantly lower, which is a per weight tax, which would mean that Zyn would be taxed significantly lower than sort of the equivalent smoking or smokeless products that are on the market, you know, your standard vape, et cetera. It would be taxed more like pipe tobacco or snuff, which sort of has almost like its own low tax exemption, right? And so there's a real policy question about whether or not we want to be taxing this brand new product at this much lower rate, or if we want to tax it at a rate that's more consistent with the other products that are used similarly. But we have to have a conversation with the Human Services Committee about it, and we need a little more testimony on it, but just sort of want to flag that for folks. And I've also probably just maxed out my understanding of the situation, so yeah.
Back to square one.
What product are we talking about? Zyn is, again, we're pretty close to my max.
CY.
It's a little pouch that I think you like tuck in your mouth,
Yeah.
maybe?
Yes.
I'm like really going over the skis. I should stop.
Yeah.
Okay, great. It's pretty intense. and the kids love it.
It's nicotine.
It is a it is not nicotine. It is a
Yes.
stimulant like nicotine.
Adults love it too.
Yes,
Yes.
great.
I mean,
You're welcome to love it. Everyone's welcome to love whatever substances they want in this room. We're just probably gonna tax them. Okay. So just, we'll get back to this, just want everyone to sort of have that flag.
Great, thank you. Under new smokeless tobacco definition, same thing, same change, get at the same type of products. And then in section 9, I think we're on page 12, we have the increase in pay to the PVR hearing officers. You know, under the law, these are set up a little differently than your typical administrative hearing officers. They're given a $150 per day per diem under current law. That's being replaced with $38 per hour plus a cost of living adjustment.
That's a funky construct, isn't it? I mean, what's the cost of living adjustment for that in successive years, or does it?
I think it's so that that 38 doesn't get locked in, and then as the years go by, it becomes less and less. I think it's to inflate it.
Okay.
And Rebecca can explain this to us in greater detail. I personally think it's weird to put someone's pay in statute, but that's me.
Yeah.
Is that what you were gonna say?
Yeah.
Yes.
And to another employee type or something.
Yeah, so we can talk to Rebecca about that.
Right. Again, administrative proposal. Wasn't my idea.
No one's yelling at you.
But it's all interesting, just.
Okay, so the flooding abatement program is in section 10. This is extending some session law from last year. So I'll walk through each part of it. Okay. Share my notes here. What we're looking at on line 16 is an extension of the deadline okay, let me back up. I'm going to tell you what this program's about. I'm not gonna-
Thank you.
Okay, so last year, there was some session law passed that aimed to reimburse municipalities for the lost revenue due to flooding. They came out of abating damaged and destroyed properties and the taxes for those properties. So municipalities would, we talked about this a little bit before when we went over the tax sale bill, right? How abatement works, but municipalities could choose, say someone's home was destroyed due to a flood, the municipality could abate the tax for that person using its own discretion, but then the municipality would have to pay the education fund anyway. So this looks to try to make those municipalities whole for that and to reimburse them for that education fund payment that they were required to make under the law. There were certain windows for parts of this program that were set into the session law so that it wouldn't be ongoing, but then more floods happened. So the need for this is to extend that program to reimburse those municipalities. My understanding is a lot of these are going to be different municipalities with the flooding that happened last summer compared with the summer before.
Oh, this is also in, the Senate just added it to budget adjustment before they voted it out of the appropriations committee. Yesterday, and so we might pull it.
Yeah, I was gonna flag that.
It's
For
in
you.
section 90 of the budget adjustment.
Yeah.
There's also something else that was in the BA that we'll get to in a minute.
Oh, okay, thanks. Sorry, I'm getting ahead of you, Kirby.
We've already done this?
We did it last year, but this is a date update.
Yeah. So the update is on line 16. So there's a deadline for when the municipality has to grant the abatement. So that's moved from November 15, 2024 up to November 15, 2025. So the reimbursement's available up until then as far as when the abatement occurred. And then page 14 extends the deadline for when the property was lost or destroyed. So last year it was up until July 1st, 2023, or between July 1st, 2023 and October 15, 2023. And so that October 15, 2023 is extended all the way to December 31st, 2024 to include all of last year. And then there was a part of this that also reimbursed municipalities for money that they had interest on loans they had to take out in order to pay that education tax. Because again, they never got to collect this tax in the first place, but they were on the hook for it. So in some cases, they may not have had room to make the payment. They may not have the extra money to make the payment. So some of them may have taken out loans. So this is to repay municipalities for that having to happen. And that deadline is extended to December 31, 2024, just like the abatement reimbursement is extended to December 31st, 2024. That's what that section does. So the next section here, section 11, is pretty much a technical change. Last year in a bill, the General Assembly decided to, after a request from the Department of Taxes, to remove the $15 late fee that exists for late property tax credit claims. This came after some testimony from the department saying that their systems, now that their systems are updated and the advances that they've made in recent years have made it so that this is not very cumbersome and there's not a good reason to have a fee for this because they can handle it well. So the General Assembly agreed and did away with this fee. The problem was there was one provision that was hiding somewhere in subdivision C2 of section 5402 that no one noticed. And so there were 3 places this fee existed in the law. 2 of them were found. This is the 3rd one. So the department's not imposing this fee, but this is to clean that up.
Thank you for whoever found it.
Wasn't me. I gotta give them credit this time for that one. So okay, then that brings us to section 12, downtown and village center tax credit. This is another administration proposal that exists in a different bill right now.
And folks, if you remember, Chris Cochran came in, pretty pictures of all of our towns, talked about that.
Okay, great. So this does exist in a bill that it's House General and Housing. So they have the same language also in the work that they're doing.
And historically, we let this either come from the Commerce Committee or the Housing Committee and move it there. We don't generally move it in a separate bill.
Okay. Do you want me to give you a background on what it's about?
Nope.
Okay.
Everyone remembers everything that happened when Chris came in 2 weeks ago.
Yep.
So we're on this committee.
Great. Okay. So it increases the amount of tax credits that could be granted from that.
Okay.
And then we have the effective dates. The tax link up is subdivision 1 here. That has to be retroactive, so it is. And subdivision 2 here, we have the personal income tax changes are effective so that when people file taxes next year is when they would first come into effect, but therefore this current tax year that we're living in. And the property tax hearing officers change would take place July 1st. And the update of the session law for reimbursement for flooding is retroactive to make sure that there's no gap there. And that's it for the miscellaneous tax bill.
Thank you. Do folks have questions about that before we go into the extra language?
Yes.
Great.
Page 11. Can you just remind us right at the top of page 11 and from page 10 on about one or both of the exclusions under subsections B and C?
Yeah, those words are changed. It used to say any, but we went from 3 partial exemptions to 2. So it went from any to both to acknowledge that.
So just pretend I've never been in the committee before. So this is where there's a limitation on taking both social security exemption and also military pay exemption.
Yes.
And so, and civil service. So what does this section then do?
So taxpayer has to choose, if they have income from multiple sources, they have to choose one exemption to take. And so, logically, they're going to choose the one in which they have the most income for.
But this is one or both of the exclusions. So does that enable them to take both exclusions, 2 of the 3, whatever?
So someone can take the social security exemption, but then for the others, they have to choose one. So sorry, I wasn't clear about that.
Just additive, they can choose social security plus one of the other 2. Okay.
Sorry about
Sorry.
phrase that.
Any other questions about any of this? Yeah.
I need clarification. My brain doesn't work right on this flood abatement.
Mhm.
I understand that the municipality had to pay the education tax, and now we're saying, are they gonna be reimbursed that amount of money? Because they've already paid it out the door?
Mhm.
But where is that money coming from to reimburse them?
The state general fund.
The general fund? Okay,
General fund, not ed.
that's where I'm
remember it being
confused.
That's what I think.
That's fun.
It was ed fund last year.
Okay, sorry, thank you.
So they're not really I'm curious to see the language. My memory of last year is that it was forgiven rather than reimbursed. The ed fund.
So that the town never paid it in the first place?
So the town did not have to pay it for
You were
those
told
properties.
ahead of time, you don't have to pay it?
You know,
The idea was that towns were beginning to, at the time that it passed the first time, towns were beginning to think about abating properties. And some towns were feeling resistant to abating properties because they didn't feel like they could be on
Right.
on the hook for the education portion of the abatement. And so we passed this saying that, in the year that you abate, you don't need to pay the education taxes on the abated properties. And then so this renewal is actually for a whole new set of properties. It's not for the properties that were already abated.
Correct, and it will be for different towns, because my town didn't have any abatements last year, but we will this year.
Am I remembering right?
My memory is also
Okay.
fuzzy
I
about.
can ask Julia about it.
Yeah, I mean, I can revisit the language from last year in full. We don't have it in full here. Just reading subsection A though. I would think that it is reimbursement, that the municipalities did make those payments, but in the real world, maybe something else was worked out.
Okay. Thanks.
Getting clarification on that would be helpful.
I'll do that.
and I think it varied too by town to town. Some towns just went with it immediately. Yes, we'll abate it. So they were owed a rebate. I think it's also like a time. I didn't think.
Whether it's
From what
forgiven
I
or
recall, yes, because
reimbursed, I don't know.
when we went through this last year, there were municipalities that had already done their abatements. So in that case, it would have to have been a reimbursement. It couldn't have been just forgiven.
Chris Richard, so I looked at the fiscal note from last year when this bill passed, and I think it was estimated to cost the ed fund $1.1 million. So that is not a significant factor when calculating tax rates.
Right, I know that, but I was just wondering about the mechanism of whether you actually, whether the town wrote a check and then they got money back, or whether they just were told you don't need to pay it.
Okay, we can get some more testimony on that.
Just a clarification, you're talking about new towns that weren't impacted, but there's nothing in here that would prevent a town that was impacted by both floods.
Yeah, they would just have to independently qualify the.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Asking for a friend.
8,500 friends, yeah.
Yes.
Just for clarification again, so that $1.1 million came from the ed fund, not the general.
Thanks for that clarification as well. I didn't recall that.
Any other questions about this slew of language? Okay. Kirby next up. And what we usually do for miscellaneous tax is we sort of pull it apart, put it back together. We tend to straw pull the sections as we re-add them, so that the final vote can just sort of be at the last possible minute so that we can use it as a catch-all.
Is this subject, or when do you anticipate this coming?
This is usually the last day of, this is subject to policy crossover deadlines, not money committee deadlines, so it'll be the week
March 21st.
after,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay, so we have three additional sections up for consideration here as well. The first is a proposal from the administration that's in the BAA currently. Although the language, when I worked, the BA language I did not work on. I worked on this though, and I did make some tweaks to some language. So that's just something we'll have to reconcile as both move along. And I'll try to point out some places where I made some changes. So this adds a subchapter addressing basically a new program to reimburse municipalities for when they acquire flood resilient properties, to reimburse them for the foregone municipal property tax from those properties. And there's a 10-year window in which payments can be made. The first 5 years, it would be full reimbursement for municipal property taxes. And then the next 5 years, it would be half that amount. So that's the general overview of what this is about. I'm just going to read subsection B because it gets to most of the substance here. So on or before September 1st of each year, the Commissioner of Public Safety will certify the properties eligible for the municipal buyout reimbursement program to the tax commissioner with any other information required by the tax commissioner. And then to be eligible for the program under this subchapter, a property shall have been acquired on or before July 1st, 2023 by a municipality and preserved by the municipality as public space or future space. I'll flag that there. I didn't make that tweak, but I don't personally know what future space means. As public space or future space with a restriction on development rights.
It's a very mysterious phrase, actually. It's exciting.
That's another thing that I would flag. I didn't change it because I'm not sure what the intent seemed to be. But I can say that there's various types of restrictions on development rights. They can be very minor, like a right of way to walk through a property or something like that, or a conservation easement, or, you know, something that bans all development, or something that just bans one singular type of development. So it's a very broad thing that it could mean. I think if you wanted to look at adding some specificity, that would be a place to get at the policy that you want. Continue on. The Commissioner of Public Safety shall not certify a property as eligible if it has been previously certified under this program as eligible for 10 previous years. I added that language. I moved it from somewhere else. Originally, this was written to say 5 continuous years and then 5 continuous years. I know that in the real world, like some weird things can happen where maybe a property is eligible for 2 years, then maybe there's a hiccup or a problem. If you say 5 continuous years, you could allow 2 years and then there's a gap year, and then there would, the way it was written before, it could be 5 years after that. And I don't think that was the intent of it all. So I changed it to 5 previous years, and I also specified that 10 years is meant to be the max. So that's why this provision is the way it is. And then we have upon notification. This part is just the administrative part of it. The Commissioner of Public Safety will inform tax, and then tax will do what it needs to do to make the payments happen. At the top of page 2 here, though, we have the payment calculation. So the payment shall be calculated using the grand list value of the acquired property for the year during which the property was either damaged or flooded or identified as flood prone. Basically, the value pre-damage. If there's a decrease in value due to either it being purchased and losing development rights, or because there's a house that was destroyed, you're looking at the high value, the before the incident. And then that will be multiplied by the municipal tax rate for the payment, and then including any sub-municipal tax rates. And then the payments made on January 1st of each year. Subsection D here, starting on line 7, is the requirement that the payments will be for 5 years. And this is where I had to make a call. I said on line 8, this is where it said continuous. Or consecutive, something like that. I changed it to previous because in case there's a gap or something, the point is 5 years worth of payments is the maximum. That's why I changed that to previous. I did keep subsequent 5 years though for the phase out years. I did that because I think if there was going to be a gap problem that happened, that it would probably happen at the beginning. If there's questions about eligibility, less likely to happen in the last 5 years, but you could, we could tweak that. I just want to bring that to your attention that I made some tweaks on that.
Just curious, how did we get to the 5 years?
That was as it was proposed. So again, it's 5 years of full municipal reimbursement and then 5 years of half of that to phase it out. And the payments for this program would be made out of the pilot special fund, which I think you've probably heard testimony at this point that there's a surplus going into the fund each year currently.
I just want to basically reiterate what I said to Doug Farnham when he was here, Chief Recovery Officer, that love the proposal, love the program. I really think we should rename it from Municipal Buyout Reimbursement Program because it's causing confusion in.
Oh, because of FEMA.
Yeah, words.
Yep.
Yeah, right. It's just when folks in the flood pocket of municipalities have been reading this, they're taking it to mean something that it's not. So I just, flood impacted grand list reimbursement or FINGLR has been proposed. I just, so,
Yeah,
Great, thank you.
you wrote down grant support program, same thing.
yeah, yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Great.
Foregone municipal
Yeah.
taxes.
No, we are not using the word foregone anymore.
Okay. What's wrong with that word?
There's both precedent problems and some,
Okay.
yes, this one.
Did we get, I can't recall, did we get an idea from Doug Farnham about what the total value might be? Did he have an estimate?
I have not heard.
I don't remember him bringing that number, and I don't remember if we have talked to JFO about that, so we need to figure that out.
I'm not sure we can predict what municipalities will choose to buy properties and what we're not.
But we
Well,
can,
it depends upon, excuse me,
we can have JFO come answer that.
it depends upon FEMA agreeing to the buyout.
Right.
And that's a longer process. He doesn't
He only said 1 million in the first year. After that, he had no numbers.
Yeah, he did say a number, yeah, that 1 million.
I guess I would flag that my reading of this does not limit it to FEMA buyouts, though, that a municipality could. Because there's the reimbursements allowed for even properties that are purchased just because they're identified as flood prone. So that could be a proactive municipality making a purchase, not necessarily even of, it could be open space or something.
But purchased by a municipality.
Mhm.
And the way the FEMA process works, that the land is eventually turned back. Once the FEMA buyout's approved, the land's turned back over to municipalities. And the vast majority of municipalities this would apply to will not have the cash resources to buy it themselves. So even if that were to happen, it would be a very small
Small,
size.
yeah.
Okay, so there's that proposal. Moving on, it's downhill from here.
Oh.
I mean, I say this, what I mean is how dense things are for us. Not that things are gonna get bad.
We're coasting. Is that what?
That's.
Yeah, we have the wind at our back.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, we're sprinting to the finish here. How about that? So on page 3, we have some language to section 6066A subdivision F1. That is simply adding back a provision that mysteriously disappeared from the Green Books a few years ago. I've heard a couple of theories about how this might have happened. It's probably happened because this section was being amended multiple times at the same time. And whatever version of things that made it through into law had dropped the language accidentally. So this is a provision that states that nothing in this subdivision will be interpreted to change this other requirement that statewide education homestead tax be billed in a manner that is stated clearly and separately from any other tax. In the real world, the Department of Taxes has done what this provision requires it to do. And this would be a clarifying type provision anyway. So no harm done, but just for the sake of the fact that it does not seem to have been intentionally removed, we need to add it back. And this was identified by Westlaw, which is one of the entities that, Westlaw is a legal research company that reviews our statutes and for their own, work that they do. And they let us know that they noticed that this disappeared.
That's so nice.
And the third is from a week or two ago when you asked me to update the tax sale statute to require a debt of $1,500 in addition to the 1-year waiting period to initiate a tax sale. So that's what we have there on line 20. And then I don't have effective dates for all of this, but the effective date for the municipal buyout reimbursement program, which probably be renamed as I understand it, does have its own unique effective date. It takes effect on July 1st, 2025. And just to specify, this was something that was in the statute before, but I've moved it down to the effective date because it's a one-time thing. We try to keep one-time occurrences out of the green books. So it's addressed here in the effective date that the Commissioner of Public Safety will first certify properties on September 1st, 2025.
Thank you.
That's it.
Thank you very much, Kirby. If folks have random one-sentence provisions that they found somewhere else that doesn't have any fiscal impact to the state, let me know sometime this week. And I think with that, we will be done for the morning. And we are back here at 1:15 to talk to the tax department about the reappraisal language that we looked at last week. If since last week you have forgotten the reappraisal language that Kirby walked through with us, if you want to spend these moments refreshing your memory before Rebecca and Jill come in, that might be helpful.